Welcome back to the Always Right podcast. I'm author Carissa DeLay.
I feel like every time we do these, I'm usually doing something silly. So I'm Jamie Vendera. I'm not today. I've got a migraine. I've had it for
He's
3
got a
days.
migraine.
That's what I wanted to tell you.
What?
So going to the Chris Daughtry show Friday, I had that migraine, and I get there. And I swear to you, when I got in-ears from Chris and I'm listening to them perform, my migraine went away. Something about the loud music. Music is therapeutic.
His voice healed you?
I'm going to have to tell him that when I talk to him this week.
It's probably not FDA approved, but we might be able to do the Daltrey regimen to get rid of headaches.
Yes, indeed. Yes,
I
indeed.
could see that because I could see where certain songs could create like a soothing to your brain where it absolutely could get behind that.
Yeah, and I love like bands like Shinedown and Daughtry. I just like that type of voice.
Oh, yes.
I love Chantel. Love you, Sean Daniel. He's amazing at taking pictures and videos. Except there was things Chris was saying like, dude, Jamie, my voice feels the best ever. And I'm like, Sean's videoing and then cut right before the cool stuff is said. Of course, you're not going to know. But I'm like, if the video would.
I wish Tesla would invent something that attaches to our brain and eye stem to where we could hit rewind and record it.
That would be cool. I would have all kinds of marketing material. All right. So
All
what
right,
does all this have to do with what we're talking about today? Absolutely nothing, but
Nothing.
your green sweater does.
My green sweater does, yes. After seeing the movie Wicked, I felt it was only necessary that we do an episode to talk about the Wizard of Oz books, the Wizard of Oz movie, the Wicked playwright, the book for that, and then the Broadway play, and then the movie, the canon, the non-canon. So, yeah, that's what we're here for. We're here for the Wizard of Oz and Wicked.
Indeed.
Have you watched Wizard of Oz, Return to Oz, any of that stuff?
Yeah, I mean, I watched them all, and I know you're going to ask, what was your favorite? Because I know you said your house is divided. I don't really remember the Return to Oz, but I remember The Wiz with Michael Jackson. I love that.
I totally forgot about that one. Yes.
Yes. He's on Down the Road.
Yes.
And my wife, we went years ago. The play was in Columbus, Ohio.
So you've seen the play. You've seen the Broadway.
Yeah. And you know what? Totally changed my mindset. I mean, I felt so bad for the Witch of the West. I'm like, yeah, she got a bad rap.
Yeah, but so that's something we're going to cover is, that's not what the original writer that's a completely different storyline. That's just taking something that, let's get into that.
Did we talk about before public domain? Because I'm assuming Wizard of Oz came out in what, 1900?
Yeah.
So
it's past public domain.
So and the author, which I know you probably got it in your notes, who wrote Wicked, was in the 90s, so he probably had free reign to kind of do that, kind of like the Pride and Prejudice and Zombies. Even that's a little different because he's kind of combining the books. But so I haven't seen the movie yet. Everyone's talking about it. Everybody's loving it.
Let's just start with the Wizard of Oz franchise and its origins first. So let's talk about the author. L. Frank Baum's book, The Wonderful Wizard of Oz. As you mentioned, it was published in 1990. And this really kind of... What did I say, 1990? Oh, yes, because we just talked about Wicked. That's in my brain. Yes. 1900. Yes. The book was published way back in 1900. Yep.
125 years ago,
almost 125 years ago. Yes. This book really kind of kicked everything off. I mean, this was kind of the central point that everybody kind of remembers. Most people don't realize there were like 13 books, which I did list in our notes, building on this original story and these characters. But we most generally remember the 1939 movie. And I remember every year it would come out on TV and we'd sit at my grandparents' house and we would watch Hee Haw and, all these different, like the Family Feuds. And then certain nights you'd see the Wizard of Oz, like the black and white, and then it turns into that Technicolor.
Yeah. I remember my stepdad at the time was stationed in Alabama, in an Ozark, and 78 or 79. And it came on television. My mom was like, you got to watch this. And I'm like, I never heard of it. And by the end of it, I was just like, wow. And we're talking about it in school the next day because back then it was such a big event. Every year, the Wizard of Oz.
Yeah. So, I watched this thing recently where it went through different countries and how they introduced color to TV. And and how different places, because of course this movie, when it filmed, there were other movies with Technicolor, but when they did, there's like the black and then she walks out into the Technicolor, like it's like
Yeah.
this moment, which I've got the slippers back here, but I've also got in our notes how this is not iconic in the books. The
No.
slippers were not red in the book. They were not ruby red slippers. They were silver.
Yeah, but I'm sure, and I've heard the stories before, they've probably done a Technicolor, of course. I mean, silver is not really going to pop, even though if it is in Technicolor. So I'm sure it was like a marketing thing, like, wow.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
And everybody was pulled into those ruby slippers.
And they're just a staple visual aspect of that movie. So, okay, like I was saying, but since that movie, that's kind of what sparked these fueling for interest in the Wizard of Oz. There's been plays, radio shows, TV, countless things that we can talk about, but it all goes back to Baum's and his inspiration from that wonderful Wizard of Oz. So the first book, The Wonderful Wizard of Oz, spoiler alert for those who've never watched the movie or anything. This is about Dorothy, a girl from Kansas. What is it with the people from Kansas, like Clark Kent and all these people I like? But anyways, so in the book, this Kansas girl, she goes and gets whisked by this tornado. And I don't know if you, as a kid, I remember watching the movie and thinking that tornadoes kind of actually did take people up in there and kept their houses together and didn't destroy houses. I'm like, oh, what's a tornado? As a kid, I wasn't afraid of a tornado. I'm like, oh, maybe I'll see the witch. Maybe I'll go to Oz. So it wasn't as scary for me. But anyways, in the book, she does meet the Scarecrow, the Tin Man, the Lion, and they go on this adventure to go see the wizard, hoping, they'll get help from him. It's more of about this personal journey and learning along the way about friendship and getting home. This is kind of like what the storyline was. And these books weren't super big, by the way.
No, you know what? And I'm pretty sure I read the first one, years after watching the movie. Now, we look back and like every book is always better than the movie. So I'm sure the book is much deeper. But at the time, since I was young, I was like, this is not the movie. There was all these new characters and just these weird monsters and stuff in it. I was like, what? And even things
Did
like...
you tell me you have not watched Return to Oz?
I know, I think I have, but I don't remember it.
Okay, because it's got Mombi in it and stuff like that. But
yeah, because I know they had more of a few of the, maybe I'm wrong, but weren't some of those characters in Return to Oz from the actual book? So they expanded.
Sadly, as I hate to say this, as my husband's listening, the Return to Oz is probably the closest to the books in comparison with, some of the characters and such. But the movie in comparison. Let's talk about the movie. The movie with Judy Garland, the one that most people can remember and relate to. It's different. It's a simplified version of the story, leaving out a bunch of stuff, like you said. The characters are a little bit different, of course, but the things that are different about the book or about the movie is the colorful visual things that you could produce at that time. Much more than I think the book could imagine putting out. And we've talked about that before with other books. When they go to movie, Stephenie Meyer did that with her last movie. She changed from the book and people were like, that wasn't the book. Things that you can't necessarily put into words as well as you could put onto the screen. And so that's what they did. This book has way more, the book has so much more going on in the movie, and a little bit more complications, or not complications, a little bit more complicated.
It's a little more gory too.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's compare book versus movie details. And one of the things that's very iconic is the over the rainbow sequence. This provides this beautiful musical number that we all know, Somewhere Over the Rainbow, that Dorothy's singing. And of course, you put that into a book, you can't hear and feel and remember it that way. It's different. And I remember as a kid, that was one of the few songs I could actually sing. And I would sing it outside thinking like the world was listening and the universe was going to whisk me away by a tornado. But, whatever. Also, the portrayal of the Wicked Witch of the West.
Yeah.
The books did not develop her, which we get to because with the Wicked series does that for us.
If I remember correctly, of course, it's been a long time since I read it. She was even killed off like early in the book, like not even halfway through the book. And, she wasn't like the central protagonist. So there wasn't that, one against the other so quickly.
Right. But the movies make her this striking villain, this green skin, flying monkeys, this, that iconic look of her that we even use when we're portraying witches now. You know what I mean? Which is more predominant in the female, or in the female. Oh my gosh. What is with my words today? I was calling people by the wrong name. I'm like,
It's because your hair is no longer the same color. It's
oh
kind of
yeah,
throwing you
I
off.
wasn't tapping into my pink. I'm just many of the supporting characters, like you said, are different book versus the film, and a lot of them have been taken out, and some of them have been altered. Let's talk about a couple of these, like because I know it's like Aunt Em and Uncle Henry, their roles. They have more of a predominant role and direct involvement in events in Oz through their connections to the magical land, and the roles are minimized in the movie. So there's also that. The entire backstory of the wizard. So this is something even with Wicked that's different. And if you watch different versions of The Wizard of Oz, you see the wizard's always different. Like even like the Great and Powerful Wizard of Oz with James Franco, all these different performances of the wizard. He's kind of different in each one of them.
Even with the wizard, because in the book, like the Emerald City wasn't an Emerald City. They had to wear these emerald colored glasses. And I'm assuming they didn't do that in the movie because then they'd have to have I don't know, I may be wrong,
Maybe a
black and
filter.
white and then emerald. And everybody in the book, that he was kind of a doofus anyway, and everyone saw him as something different. They saw him as a fireball, or they saw him as a fairy or a giant head. So, of course, they didn't have to have time in the movie. You're moving so quickly to let these citizens say he's like this and like that. So again, that's
Yeah.
just imagery, so we
Well,
got
and
to
if you
get to
think about it, in the movie, it portrays him as just this basic, ordinary man behind the curtain. But in the books, which you read, is he somewhat kind of magical powers in the books?
I don't remember. It's been too long. Like, and I don't even know. Man, I should have went back and reread it when we were planning this, because I just remember reading it and being like, man, this is kind of like some of the stuff with like the Tin Man and everything, like chopping off parts of his body and then regrowing it, to replace it with a tin part. There's some like a cursed
Dr.
axe is what I
Frankenstein.
remember. So the only thing I remember about the wizard is, of course, that he made everybody wear those glasses, and then everyone's like, "Oh, he's so magical," and the way they saw him was different. So, but I don't remember if he actually had magic or not. It's been too long. Somebody will be watching this and they'll correct me and they'll tell us.
Well, so you had mentioned a lot of the characters that were omitted. In the book, it says that it populated a wide array of quirky, unique Ozonian characters that inhabit the Emerald City and regions of the land. And I know, like, there is a map somewhere in one of the books. You can see the different places, like the Deadly Desert, all these different little places. But the movie focuses primarily on Dorothy, Scarecrow, the Tin Man, of course, and the Cowardly Lion, and going out and like these small supporting characters. But the detail of the political and social structures of Oz, that's something else. The books, which I put in a note, I don't know if you saw that down there, but this part here, the detail of the political and social structure differences of Oz, they're different in the movie, and how the movie simplifies this and primarily focusing on the journey just to the Emerald City, which got me to thinking 1900 versus 1990. There were definitely different political things happening. So the difference between Oz and the building of this storyline in the early 1900s versus when Maguire put out The Wicked, the social structures that was happening. I have that down there later in the notes because I thought it was kind of cool how there was a difference happening.
Yeah, but I mean, let's think about it. You got an hour and a half to tell a story, and you're trying to make with Technicolor. It's based. I mean, adults love this movie too, but you're trying to impress children and make it iconic. So they probably wouldn't dive into politics.
Well, it's interesting is we always talk about the stuff that's taken out of The Wizard of Oz, like the man hanging in the background, or
Oh
the different
yeah.
things that people would see, and it's like in reality, the books were a lot more
Yep.
dark than what they portrayed on films. It's interesting.
Yeah, because I remember these characters. Man, my memory's so bad. I feel like there were these springy characters, and they would boing, and they would hit you with their heads or something like that. But again,
Okay.
I mean, it would have taken me 2 hours to read this book. I should have went back and got it because it is such a short book.
Yeah,
But
yeah. Maybe that's something that you can put on your list of things to do when you're not busy.
yeah, I'll do it after I finish Age of the Sigil.
Right? We have an episode of New Year's resolutions coming up in like
Oh,
a few weeks,
crud.
so
Well, we did
we
that
have to
last year.
revisit what
Apparently,
you've not done.
Yeah, I didn't do my last year's resolution.
You got a little
So,
bit better.
but now I
You
got
did load it.
pseudo right. They finally did what I asked them to do, and I can
Yes.
compile all the novels into
Oh
one.
yeah, I love that functionality that they have in there. Okay, so detailed descriptions of Oz itself. The book provides a much more detailed description of Oz's geography, different regions. I mean, I feel like the movie does that in a sense when it kind of looks over without giving a
Yeah.
major description. When it looks out over through the yellow brick road and you see the different regions and stuff, it just doesn't explain what they are. So if you've read the book, you may realize what those areas are. And the movie offers only a glimpse into the diversity portrayed from the book. Do you know why the shoes were red versus silver? And some of the
Well, like I said earlier,
yeah, you had mentioned
probably
marketing.
probably because of Technicolor. I mean, they're going to pop on the screen. If they were silver, they would still look good, but they really, in my view, that's when I watched the movie, that's what caught me. Especially in Technicolor, like the yellow brick road, the green, and they separated it from that. You probably have a better answer though.
No, you're right, but a lot of people think that Dorothy's dress is blue and white, and her shirt is white, and the shoes are red. But in all reality, because of Technicolor, some of those colors actually weren't that color. It's how the how it was recorded. It had to be a different color. So some of those things had a different hue to them when you took them off screen. But that red would make them extremely vibrant. So if you would have put a silver shoe, the silver wouldn't have, it would kind of probably would have dulled it out a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I gotta sneeze.
Bless you. As long as you're not like me, I'll sneeze 57 times in a row.
Well, I do that, and then my heart rate goes up.
I was trying to remember, and this may be my brain. In The Wizard of Oz, was the yellow brick road actually yellow in the book?
I thought it was because I was only going based on memory of the covers. So yes, the Yellow Brick Road. Jamie looked it up. It was
And
in the
it's
book.
yellow,
Yeah.
golden.
Oh, all right. What about the witches in the book? We know that in the movies we're used to Glenda coming down, her pinkness coming down and saving the moment with the Wicked Witch, and the house falls on the Wicked Witch of the East, and then the Wicked Witch comes in. But in the books, the Wicked Witch of the West is less flamboyant. She's, a cackling villain and more powerful, calculating sorceress motivated by these desires of power and control over Oz. Her methods are just subtle and manipulative rather than this malevolent magic. The books don't make these huge characters. They're just a almost like a tertiary character in a sense, a part of it, but not like it is in the movies. Like you mentioned her death was in the book a little earlier, and it was definitely less dramatic than what it is at the end of the movie with
Yeah,
Dorothy.
and I think there were several more than just the East and West in the
Yeah,
book.
yeah, there were other witches, I think. I think there were other witches because but in the movie they play the Wicked Witch of the West, which is the main villain, and then the East is of course the one who Dorothy kills with her house. And Baum's series introduces witches such as Mombi, which the Return to Oz introduces. That's kind of like the witch in that movie, who's more complex. And I feel like, again, I hate to admit this because my husband's listening, but I feel like Mombi has more of this mysterious feel in that movie than the Wicked Witch of the West was a little bit more cartoonish.
Yeah, indeed. I
Yeah.
have something on the tip of my tongue too, and I can't remember what it was. Well,
Yeah. So when I was trying to research, this, it was a little bit hard to pinpoint the chronological order of the Wizard of Oz universe, um, aside from the books, because the adaptations and the works and the timelines all kind of vary. And there isn't a single universal agreed upon order, which is so weird. It's like, how would you not know this came out this and this came out? But you got to realize sometimes people would put things out and it made the publication stuff wasn't as direct and concise as it is today. Like this date is timestamped. Um, but we can at least try to arrange some of these books in order. And I have these listed because Baum wrote like 13 books, and we're just going to follow the publication order through the books because some of these books have flashbacks. Some of them are like they go back in time type thing, all that. Publication. Do you want to do this since I have these? And I know you have a headache.
no, I'm okay. I'm okay. I think it's sinuses. That's why I'm groggy too. And actually, reading this makes me want it because I know these aren't big books. So, like, if you like to consume books,
Mhm.
this would be easy for you if you want to kind of get into sci-fi, light sci-fi fantasy. Wizard of Oz, of course, was 1900, not 1990.
The Wonderful Wizard of Oz?
Yeah, The Wonderful Wizard of Oz. I guess I have to say that because it's very specific. The Marvelous Land of Oz was 1904. Ozma of Oz was
Which that
1907.
one, yeah, they talk about Ozma in the Return to Oz book.
Yep.
Or, I mean, movie.
Yep. Yeah, because I'm sure there were several movies. Because, like, for example, I'm pretty sure there was a Wicked movie in the 90s that wasn't that popular.
Yeah, it wasn't very popular, but yes.
So, Dorothy and the Wizard in Oz, 1908. The Road to Oz, 1909. The Emerald City of Oz was 1910. The Patchwork Girl of Oz, 1913. You know what's so funny? That since that movie was so huge, you would think they would have ran with it. They had so much to go on that they could have kept doing movies.
Yeah, you'd be really cool, and this is just me, is if somebody made 13 movies. This could be its own franchise.
Exactly. Because in my mind, I'm thinking Harry Potter, now they're redoing it as a TV series. And I'm like, man, you could do the same thing with Oz. It would be wonderful. Kids would love this.
I mean, if you want to remake things, like finish out all these books. Like go back in here and just do the books. I mean, they're short books, so that could be one movie per book. And you wouldn't have to take too much out of it.
No. TikTok of Oz. So for all of you thinking that TikTok's just around, it's been around since 1914. The Scarecrow of Oz, 1915. Rinkatink in Oz. I don't have my glasses on. Hopefully that's
1916.
Right. Yep. The Lost Princess of Oz, 1917. The Tin Woodsman of Oz, 1918. The Magic of Oz, 1919. And Glinda of Oz, 1920.
Yeah, so only about, 15 years or so later, the Wizard of Oz movie came out.
Yeah.
Yeah. But and like I said, there have been so many adaptations of this, musicals, films. I mean, I've been watching Sabrina the Adventures
of Sabrina the Witch
on Netflix.
Yep.
Did you watch it?
I have to consume it when it's all done, so I watched like the first couple seasons, and then nothing else was out, and then I get lost. And like
I just that's how I am, and I just started streaming it this past week or so. And
I'll
so I'm
put
on
it back in. I'm going through chronologically through Walking Dead. I said I never would do it because I stopped when Carl died, but now I went back and it's like you got to watch the first 3 seasons of not The Walking Dead, but the other one, Fear the Walking Dead. And now I'm on season 2 of The Walking Dead, and I'm like,
and there was the online stuff too.
I know, but so much, so much to cover.
That's too overwhelming for me.
Yep.
Yeah. But in Sabrina, they do an episode, and the hubby he's on training this week. So before he went to training, I was laying on my chaise, and he was laying on my couch over my living room because he has his own and I have my own. But he came over to my living room, and we were kind of like, I was watching Sabrina on TV, and he just wanted to hang out there. And then of course he was on his phone, and they just kind of looks over, and he's like, I definitely think they're doing something about the Wizard of Oz. Yeah, they were doing a play in hell of the Wizard of Oz characters being in hell. It was pretty cool, but instead of following the yellow brick road, they were following the blood road or whatever. Kind of cool. But all right, you said the Tin Woodsman of Oz, 1818. That's interesting because I feel like when I'm looking at this list, how he kind of broke down everybody's backstory.
Yeah, but why didn't he do it? Did he do it with the lion? I don't think so.
Now, the lion? I don't think was a huge character, was he? But maybe I'm wrong.
I don't remember.
Yeah, but maybe he meant to. All right. So like I said, several adaptations, but it's important to remember these often when we know we've talked about books or books to movie, they diverge a little bit from the story, and you just have to decide which one's better and which one's not. That's up to you. Also, I noted that the books did not delve into the detailed backstory of the Wicked Witches I set up there earlier. That's why we're going to go into Wicked, because Wicked is a whole storyline by itself that was inspired by the Wonderful Wizard of Oz. That kind of goes into more of a backstory of the Wicked Witch of the West and the East, but Baum does provide a little bit of context, so that way it kind of gives you a little bit of a groundwork for it. And we just wouldn't watch the movie. Totally worth it for those who haven't seen it. We almost went and saw the play in London. We were there, but after the Phantom of the Opera, our girls were on fire to go see something else, and we almost went and saw Wicked and didn't. We probably should have. It would probably have been awesome. let's talk about the Wicked movie or the Wicked storyline. The Wicked story started with Gregory Maguire, his book Wicked, The Land and Times of the Wicked Witch of the West. And he wrote this in 1995, a year before I graduated high school. And I remember when this kind of started taking off. It didn't kind of take off right at first, book-wise it did, but like then when it turned into the Broadway play, that's when I feel like it really took off. Yeah. And again, it's not a remake of The Wizard of Oz for those out there, but it's like a what if story. What if the Wicked Witch, this is showing her side of things, and I really like how it portrays that. And after watching Wicked, I prefer this storyline to the one with James Franco in it, The Wonderful Wizard of Oz, or the Oz, or whatever. I can't remember what that movie's called, the one with James Franco. But
I don't even remember him being in an Oz movie.
He played Oz. I think it's the Wonderful Wizard. No, it's not. It's the Oz the Great and Powerful, or I don't even know. My husband will be saying it as he's watching this right now because
James
it was
Franco movie about the Wizard of Oz. Oz the Great and Powerful.
Thank you.
This was in 2000. I had no clue this even existed.
Yeah. And the thing is, there's so many renditions that I'm trying to remember which renditions are which, because there are different versions of movies out there that I've watched, and I'm like, oh man, I don't remember what they're all called, but I remember visually seeing them. But as far as the Wicked storyline, it was a book first. Then it became this super popular Broadway musical in 2003. The musical added even more to the story and characters than the books did, which is kind of cool. And I didn't know this. And for those who didn't know this already, who haven't watched the movie, it is only part one. Currently. Really? The movie is only part one. And it was a long movie, but it's only part one. So it's cool. I'm excited now to see the second part. And I think my husband said that they're already filming that part. I wondered why in interviews Ariana Grande still had the light hair and the light eyebrows and stuff like that. I'm like, oh, they're still filming, so they're doing the next part. The thriller film directed by Michael Steinberg, starring Julia Stiles. Now this was done in 1998. I think this is the one you might have talked about.
I think that's the one.
Yeah, this was done by Sundance Film Festival. But that's where I think that's where the first, You're Gonna Be Popular song came. And then I think, what is that TV show where they sing? Glee. They sing it in that and Gonna Be Popular, and then they do that in the movie again. But changes to Wicked movie made from the original musical are kind of explained. Not all Wicked tales are the same, just the same as The Wizard of Oz. Just because it's in the book this way doesn't mean that it's in the Broadway play this way, and the Broadway play doesn't completely translate to the movie. There are artistic freedoms that are taken, which every adaptation, we know that from doing that with all these other ones. But Wicked doesn't really follow the Baum's original Oz books. It uses some characters from there in the places, but it tells a completely different story. Like in the one, I think they give a name to the Wicked Witch. I can't remember what the name is in the James Franco movie, but the Wicked Witch of the West, her name is Elphaba in this, and I put it in the parentheses there. And what they did was they took L. F. Baum, because L. Frank Baum. Yep, they took his name, Elphaba. Yeah.
All I can tell you is I side with her now.
Right?
After seeing the play.
Right? You're like, she was bullied. Okay, I'm not going to give this away. She was bullied. Yeah, but the movie, I should say, takes things from Baum's world, and the play, I should say, all the Wicked stuff takes things from his world, and it goes in a way that doesn't never necessarily follow the original stuff, but it gives you this cool backstory. Like you said, you're kind of following this witch's road to darkness in a sense, but you're like, I get it. You see why she's an anti-hero. She's not necessarily a villain. She's an anti-hero, more or less.
Sneeze number 2. So
I wanted to talk about several different significant differences that exist between the narrative of Wicked.
Both Can you add that to the list? Significances.
How would I spell that one? Yeah, right. Significant differences between both the novel and the musical. And especially that's characters that are presented in the books. So Elphaba, like I said, this is the Wicked Witch. Her backstory is more detailed. It's more of a sympathetic story, exploring her childhood, her motivations, her relationships, where Baum's book literally has really not much to offer about this character. Which is kind of a cool idea if you're looking to do anything with, as an author, if you're looking to do something with characters in well-known books, find a tertiary character and go create something that if it's in public domain. That's a great idea. I know we've talked about this before of authors taking shoot offs of some of their characters and writing little small books, and it kind of expounds the whole storyline. But that's just fun. The wizard's betrayal. Now, the wizard's depicted quite differently. This is what I was saying earlier. In Baum's book, he's ultimately revealed as somewhat an ordinary man who has some trickery and um, deception is kind of how he maintains power. And he has just a little bit of magical abilities. But in Wicked, the wizard presents a more complex, potentially sinister figure. You kind of get that in The Wizard of Oz. That he's not sinister, but he's like kind of like a narcissist in a way. In Wicked, you have the Galinda to Glinda. She changes her name. Glinda's character is subsequently evolves from this kind of rich, snobby bully to someone who can see the way of Elphaba's struggles and kind of they become best friends, which is a huge key part of the story because she is this one type of person that you're almost loathing her, and then you see her heart change, and then you're like, wow, this is going to be good. They're going to be best friends, but they eventually don't become best friends.
Yeah.
You know that. But the
Yeah,
nature
the
of
magic.
magic.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
magic. I just
Yeah.
remember in the books and in the movie, it's just kind of like, is it real? Or, it's kind of whimsical and more cartoony to me, but it's got a little bit of a dark side in Wicked, like it's kind of gives me them Harry Potter feels like, do not mention his name.
He who should not be named. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, I could see that where Elphaba would be the wicked witch of the West. Wicked witch of the West would be more kind of like the Voldemort of the Wicked series. So, and like you said, the book, it's more consequential magic versus in Wicked, it's more darker consequences. But it's almost like kind of, I feel like back in the timeline, in the early 1900s, you got to realize that's a lot closer to like the witchcraft and heresy and like burning witches at the stake. The people in the Christian era were still kind of like witches are evil and all these things,
Yeah, so he was probably when
treading
he wrote
lightly
the
with the
yep.
wicked witches. Yeah. Versus now we have this more open, earthly witches type thing. And it's like, it's celebrated. Magic is it kind of like everybody wants to be magical. Well, not everybody, but people love magic now. In a sense, the idea of magic with Harry Potter and different aspects of magic. So, side note, I went into a comparison of the two authors, like I said, of their political worlds and their social worlds during the era. And L. Frank Baum's, when he wrote The Wonderful Wizard of Oz in 1900, Maguire wrote it in 1995. The social and political climates of those two periods were significantly different. Baum's timeline, this was the progressive era. The United States was in the midst of the progressive era. This is a period of like social and political reform aimed to like addressing industrialization, corruption, inequality. However, this was also a time when there were less opportunities. There were limited, women weren't officially voting. Populist movements were gaining traction, advocating for the rights and the workers for corporations and different things. Women were on the move for women's rights. Racism and segregation, Jim Crow
Indeed.
laws were firmly in place in the South, and the racial segregation and discrimination was widely spread across the nations. I mean, and you got to see that, like the green skin, like it's almost like they play this in Wicked. It's almost like it's a racist thing in there because she's green skinned.
Yep.
They play on that.
I was getting ready to say that, but then my mom texted me because I didn't put the phone back in airplane mode.
Hi, Jamie's mom.
I shall do that.
Yes. Again, like I said, the women's suffrage was definitely a battleground. Women had limited political and economic opportunities in this time frame. So, but in Maguire's timeline in the 1990s, of course, this is the era when I was in high school. This is the post-Cold War era. This is when the collapse of the Soviet Union and the end of the Cold War had redefined this global political landscape. There was civil rights movements and these feminist movements that had significantly altered social attitudes towards like gender, race. Even though inequality will, I feel like, always exist somewhere, because not everybody's going to be on the same page unless we become like, zombies.
Yeah, or the aliens come down and actually take over, and then we're like, we need to join together.
Yeah. Yeah. Globalization, this is reshaping, like, this is when the economy and cultures worldwide leading into these bigger opportunities and challenges. We're kind of like we're only like maybe 10, 15 years into like credit cards at this time.
Wow. Wow.
I know, like, people didn't realize, like, the credit cards haven't always been around. Like, credit cards were becoming a lot more like,
The norm.
yeah, yeah. There was an emphasis on political identity. This is discussing like the social justice that became around like more predominant at this point in the 90s. The Wicked definitely wrote into this a lot of the injustices. And so played a lot on that. Like, you have this large entity of this teaching school in Oz of these students. And here comes this, you have these two people, one who's of the hierarchy of that stands out to the social part of it, but then you have this other entity, Elphaba, who looks different, is shunned by this part, but in all reality is higher above all of them in the magical realm and is regarded higher than the others. It's kind of cool how they play that. Like, where are you socially and where are you
Magically.
magically? Yeah. So anyways, so again, these differences are how I feel impact the social aspects of what these authors were seeing in their time. And it's really cool how they played it into their characters. I feel like it's something that a lot of those like Divergent and Hunger Games books do. A lot of those books do these futuristic things, but when you watch them, you're like, I could definitely see that happening. What about
Yep.
you? Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, I see the politics in it, and I see where we could lead. So, yeah, when we went and watched the play, yeah, it felt very real. I'd be like, this could actually, recruit. That's magic. It's not real. But it did pull us in for sure. I was like, she drugged me to. I was like, I don't want to go watch this Wicked play. But then I loved it. I'd go see it again.
Well, we drug our girls to see Phantom of the Opera, and that is something we need to cover is Phantom of the Opera. Let's do that one some point because my oldest wanted to see a play on her birthday because we were in London on her birthday, and we wanted to see a play, and I did Phantom of the Opera because I was trying to make everybody happy at the same time. And we agreed on the Phantom of the Opera, and there was a little resistance in the beginning. And everybody's like, and then when we went, the energy that when we left was so amazing that I wish I could have like bottled that up and like sprinkled that every once in a while. Like, remember this energy? So we
And
end up
then,
watching. Go ahead.
yeah, then I'll have to go and watch the old Phantom of the Opera horror movie because it's completely different.
Yeah. Well, we watched the one with, oh gosh, the guy from 300. We just literally last week watched it. It's the movie, The Phantom of the Opera, but it has, what's the guy from 300?
I know you're talking about Gerard.
Yeah, Gerard Butler.
Yep.
Gerard Butler. Yes.
Gerard.
He plays the Phantom in this one. And the guy from The Conjuring plays the love interest for Christine. And so this is something that we just recently watched and it was funny because the girls were like, oh, I remember from the play. I remember that. Or, oh, I don't remember that in the play. So that was really cool to, whatever. But yeah, so now I'm on track to finding a time that we can ever be in a city where Wicked is playing and we have to go watch it.
Yep.
May have to go back to London for that one.
I don't know. They after this movie now, I guarantee you it's going to ramp up. Like I
Mm-hmm.
said, we saw it in Columbus, and there for a while it was just in New York. So there will probably be several troops on tour.
Oh, yeah. But anyways, well, hopefully this has been a fun episode for you and your headache.
It's yeah, it has been a fun episode, minus my headache.
Well,
It is what
I
it
took
is.
over talking, so you didn't have to do a lot of that. I know that you didn't feel the greatest, but I made you
Yeah,
get here.
I don't, maybe it's the weather here is crazy. It's cold and it's warm. You can even, I mean, I have the nerve damage from the glass, but like this morning, this isn't that. I feel like maybe it's dryness. It's too cold. I don't know.
You guys
So
have any snow coming?
I hope not. I hate it. I hate it. I hate snow. Sorry. Yep.
See, reason number 734 why
To
you should
move
be
to
moving to
Florida.
Florida. Yeah, but by the time you get here, I'll be gone.
Yep. That's the plan. No.
All right. This has been a great episode. But if you'd like to reach out and you have an idea for a new episode that you'd like us to cover, is there a book to movie that you'd like us to cover? I think because we're going to start a new series from book to screen. Is there something you want us to cover as far as a writing topic? Do you have an author friend who wants to come on? Invite them. Tell them, hey, you should reach out. If you have something you want to say about an episode, definitely do that as long as it's nice.
If not, keep it to yourself.
Right? You can't say something nice. Go say it to your cat. But you can email us at alwayswritepodcast@gmail.com, and you can send us your little notes there. Also, if you would like to find ways to listen to us, you can go to alwayswritepodcast.com and you can click on those little icons. You can follow us on YouTube and Spotify and Amazon Music, on our social media. Click and subscribe, whatever you want to do. Just make sure you're doing it. And watch our episodes and give us a shout out. We'd love to hear from you. All right. As always, I'm author Carissa DeLay.
And I'll be more energetic next time. I'm Jamie Vendera.
All right. Thank you for listening. Until next time, always write.